Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February Policy Committee meeting. I would like to officially call this committee meeting to order and begin with approval of the agenda.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Has everyone had a chance to read over the January 22nd open session minutes?
Yes.
Okay. I'll accept a motion if everybody's good with
I
it.
move that we approve the January 22nd, 2020 open session minutes.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Okay. Let's begin with policies for second review. Mrs. Morris will start with 1-7, duties of the board secretary.
Yes, ma'am. This policy went to the board. Actually, all of these policies went to the board at the last meeting, and I've not received any recommended changes since that meeting
For all of them.
for any of them.
Oh, A through F?
A
Yep.
through F.
Okay. I don't have any questions. Do you? Nope, I do not.
So I move that we send policies 1-7, 1-9, 1-11, 4-8, 5-1, and the proposed new policy on the fixed asset inventory to the full board for second review or for approval.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. We'll send those to the March meeting next Tuesday. So now, policies for first review. We'll start with 1-14, Board of Education policies.
Yes, and I'm continuing through our regular review, and I think this finishes up chapter 1, and I try to not overload. Chapter 1 is just really me and doesn't require other cabinet staff to be involved in the process of reviewing those so much. I'm trying not to load all of chapter 2 or chapter 3 or chapter 4 or 5
Okay.
for Dr. Friedel all in one. So I'm going to be jumping around a little more this year because I found it was difficult for folks.
Okay.
1-14, there were just a few things that I found some of the board and superintendents not capitalized, and I fixed all that. And then there were two really substantive changes. One is with the Leandro language. It does say that all decisions are supposed to be made with the focus on the sound basic education, and the recommendation in the West Ed reports that we make that more consistent through policy. So I've done that. We had the process by which anyone can recommend to the policy committee a change. It just wasn't in our policy, so I added that. And then I added some language about effective date because we're not always changing. We're not always saying when a policy is effective. We usually say when it's not, if we're holding it off. But I just wanted to, unless otherwise specified, it's effective at the date.
Okay. I have a question.
Yep.
In the section of policy adoption, we added the fact that it goes to the policy committee in the red language, but the rest of it doesn't talk about the fact that it goes to policy first and then is recommended to the full board. And I guess I didn't go back to look at our other policies, whether or not they refer to the committee that it goes to.
I don't think that they generally do. We
Okay.
can start adding that in for clarification. This one is the one
So
kind of standing rule is that it comes to policy committee versus other committees of the board.
right.
Um,
So because it says any new policy or changes in existing
Yeah.
shall be introduced to the board for discussion. Do we want to say first it goes to the policy and then or to the policy committee and recommended? But if you don't think that it goes in there because we don't do it in other instances?
No, I think it makes sense in this one
Okay.
because it is different. What I can do is change that to say, after being reviewed by the policy committee, any new policy changes.
Sounds good. Okay. Okay. And then on the next page, the last paragraph of policy review section, the superintendent and general counsel have the authority to make to any existing policy, technical and conforming changes necessitated. Such changes are effective immediately, subject to ratification by the board. That's not how we do it. Have we had instances where we have to make a change to the policy quickly and it doesn't go?
We haven't had to exercise that. There are some times when statutory changes come down, and usually I bump those up and I ask
Okay.
you all to do a, fast track it. Thank you.
Okay.
But we've not had to do that. The only other thing that I can think of is the technical piece where you've given me the authority to
Okay.
change.
Okay, I'm good. That was it. So I move that we send the changes to policy 1-14 to the full board for first review.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, policy 1-22, emergency drills.
I learned a new term on this one. One school-wide tabletop exercise.
Yes.
That's a new one.
Yeah, that's required by law. So
What
that's
is
why-
a school-wide tabletop exercise?
It is, they sit down with law enforcement, the school administration, Jared's team, and go through kind of talking through the whole.
So the
process.
assemblies that the schools do?
No, this
That's
is actually a prep meeting at the
A prep
school
meet-
level.
Okay,
So the school staff knows what they're
Leadership
supposed to,
team,
correct.
administration.
okay.
So this is just staff.
that
Yes.
meeting is.
Can
my
we say
understanding.
that? Because the drill is the overall drill, right?
Right.
Okay.
Would you propose that section, at least one school-wide tabletop exercise conducted by members of the school administration
Yeah.
and/or leadership team,
Conducted.
or something to that effect, so it's
Right.
pretty clear.
That was a new one.
Yes.
The second to, the last paragraph under reporting procedures, superintendent needs to be uppercase and or designee added.
I was gonna, can I put for the at least one school-wide table that was conducted by safety department?
Yes.
For staff.
Yeah, in consultation with the safety department.
Sorry, and I cut you off before you explained what the changes were.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Oh, please. And then-
Do we do drills with staff and or students in the event of like a shooting on campus, or like practice drills, what to do?
Mr. McGrath is
We do our obviously we do our standard lockdown drills. In terms of active shooter drills, we do not do those currently. We do those during the summer in consultation with law enforcement at a school for law enforcement to practice those situations. But Mr. McGraw can speak to this a little bit more in detail.
I was familiar with the summer drills with law enforcement, but I didn't know if we did practice those drills with our teachers and staff. And I wanted to ensure that we did or didn't with students, because I know that there was a case in another state last week where some elementary students were traumatized and the parents were not aware that they were doing active shooter drills. And there were some emotional issues with young students after that. So I wanted to verify where Union County Public Schools was on these drills.
Students do not participate in after-school drills, summertime where we practice with law enforcement. On teacher work days, sometimes they'll use our buildings. Students do not participate in those.
How about staff? Do all of our teachers, are they prepared and trained what to do age appropriately if there was an active shooter?
Teachers and students are trained during the school day on the state-approved lockdown procedures. And we practice those drills 4 times a year. As far as teachers or students participating after school in like law enforcement type lockdown drills, they do not participate. Teachers would be able to view it, but we have not asked them to participate because, you know, they are active and someone could be injured. And as you said, it could be traumatic to someone who's not used to participating in that. But our teachers and our students during the school day, there is state-approved lockdown drill training, and we practice that 4 times a year now, 2 times the first semester, 2 times the second semester.
So our teachers, so you've answered my question about students. So our teachers and staff and receptionists, people at the front desk, people on the intercom system are not trained how to standard operating procedures for active shooter.
I think the short answer is yes, they are. I think what we're getting some confusion between active shooter drills and lockdown procedures. We don't train anyone on active shooter drill. A lockdown, as governed by the state, is kind of the overarching drill for anything: intruder, active shooter, a number of different scenarios where your building is completely shut down. And I think a lockdown drill is much different than an active shooter drill. An active shooter drill is conducted by law enforcement. We don't do that with our students or staff.
And they actually have it if they pretend that
They stage it.
They stage it. It's an actual thing.
It is.
So if we have someone on the intercom,
That's a lockdown. No?
okay,
Yeah, a lockdown drill at a school would be, we receive a call from law enforcement or the 911 center or the principal or administrator, someone at the school decides we have a situation that we need to go into a lockdown. We practice locking the school down 4 times a year. As Dr. Houlihan said, the active shooter training would be when law enforcement comes into our building. They're in the hallways with guns drawn, basically. They're scanning rooms. But as far as that type of training, our teachers and our students don't participate
I
in
think
that.
Ms. Merrill means, though, when we think there may be an active shooter on campus and we go into a lockdown, are they trained? Are the
emotionally prepared on the script and everything not to
freak out the kids?
freak out the kids?
We actually reviewed that with all of our administrators about staying calm. Calmness is contagious, is what we always tell our team members. We want them to be calm when you call a lockdown at a school using the code that we use. You need to be calm. You need to be reassuring and confident that everything's okay.
Were they given a script so that they can remain calm and not let their emotions get away from them because they're trying to figure out what to say because they weren't given a script?
We have the emergency handbook that tells you the information to give. I'm not sure there's a script, and I can work on that.
I think one of the things when we're hiring people for the front office is that they have to know that that's going to be part of their job. And if that's something that they don't think that they can handle, we need to address that because it has become part of the job for people who have anything to do with the front office at our schools.
You're correct. It happens more often now than in years past. And we respond to each situation individually. But I would tell you over the years I've been here, it does happen more often now. Our teams are more prepared for lockdowns. But I also think we need to prepare our front office people better to communicate that out.
I really think we need to, because when a student or teacher is just sitting in their classroom and all of a sudden an emotional, erratic person comes in over the intercom because they're scared and they haven't been given the tools on how to handle that specific task, perhaps we need professional development perhaps each principal needs to appoint who that person is going to be in the front office and practice training for that person, to remain calm and read this script and that code. whatever the code's going to be, and the importance of them understanding that your tone and your emotion is going to set the tone for 1,800 people in that building.
We will work on training the front office people. We'll work on a script. I know every situation is different, but we'll work on a generic script where they can use the majority of it.
I think it'd be great for each principal to appoint who that person is going to be. May be out that day.
One, I think things are a lot different when we're role playing or we're going through it in training than it is on the actual thing. I think it's something too that has to be discussed in hiring because
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think the more you practice it too, just
Right,
like
you get
giving
better.
a 3 or 5 minute speech, anywhere, the more you practice it, the more comfortable you're going to be when it's time to step in front of that microphone and deliver. And perhaps, when our teachers are receiving professional development, maybe that's something you can put together for, those point people, so that, Piedmont is consistent with Parkwood and Sun Valley and Weddington, and that all of them have been trained with the same script and the same message. So they don't feel like they're out on an island, having to do this for themselves, and that they're truly a team, and that it's consistent countywide.
Yeah, lockdowns are difficult. They are emotional and they produce anxiety, and we need to train our team the best, and we'll work on that. And
I would
we'll make-
appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
You're
you so much.
You're welcome.
how often do we do drills on tornadoes and things like that? Because that was a big thing.
We normally only practice the tornado drill during the Severe Weather Awareness Week, which is coming up either in March or April. It usually comes during that week. We did get to have a actual tornado warning.
Yes.
It was not a practice. It was the real deal about 2 weeks ago. Is that right?
Correct.
2 weeks ago.
On
And
the
it
7th.
happened for about 45 minutes. Our schools did a great job.
They did do a great job.
We did debrief on that with our principals, and I think across our county, they did a great job.
I think maybe we need to have one earlier in the year too. I think they all did a great job, but I read a lot of stuff about younger students who were upset about it. And I think maybe because we hadn't gotten to the drill yet that year as well. So just something to think about. Okay. So I move that we send the changes to policy 1-22 to the full board for first review.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That brings us to policy 2-1, fiscal goals.
And this again is just adding the sound basic requirements, or educational requirements.
I move that we send the changes to policy 2-1 to the full board for first review.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, policy 2-3, settlement of claims.
Okay, the language I added here is to deal with insurance coverage. There are some cases that don't actually come to the board for approval. They don't even sometimes come to me for consideration. Those sometimes like workers' comp and those kinds of things that are completely covered by insurance. They and some minor settlement personal injuries. And so I was putting that, and then I also had language that we would need just for a reminder once other folks are handling these that everything for the insurance companies and this.
So I have a question. We, every month, get updated on settlement of claims.
Yes.
So this doesn't say that. This says that the superintendent will provide a report to the board at the time the total claims settled exceeds $100,000. Given that we do it monthly, I would prefer it to say that that's what we get. We get a monthly update on settlement of claims.
Regardless
I'm sorry,
of
the
amount.
last,
Yeah, the super, okay.
it's the, right there.
Correct. Yeah, what I can do is, because we don't always have some every month, that the superintendent will
If
provide,
applicable.
yeah,
A monthly
a report, sure, a monthly report to the board, as applicable.
As applicable.
Yep.
Thanks.
Mhm.
That's all I have. Anybody else? Nope. I move that we send the changes to policy 2-3 to the full board for first review.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, policy 3-31, arrests and convictions.
This was a driver ed thing.
Yes, this is, we did not have this language in our policy when I was reviewing them, and I just thought it was really important that if our driver ed instructors get driving infractions, our current policy only requires us to report things that are not minor traffic infractions. But I do think that our driver ed instructors do need a higher duty to report.
Yes.
And then I moved the
I saw that. yeah.
failure to the end so that because the way it was only with charges, it wasn't with
Right.
convictions and decisions, so I moved it to cover everything.
Okay.
This language, you
Mhm.
just move to the end, so it's for the whole thing instead of just for one part of it. I like that.
Okay. I move that we send the changes to policy 3-31 to the full board for first review.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay, that brings us to administrative guidelines for review. 3-4, exposure to blood-borne pathogen, administrative guidelines.
Yes, and this was developed by our risk manager and our nurses after reviewing the current guidelines to make it more consistent with how things are actually handled.
I have no questions. None.
And this would,
Go to the full board, right?
Go to the board for review. Correct.
does this cover those devices we had spoken about a
It
couple of
does.
weeks ago? Can you tell me where that's covered?
The device, I'm sorry, the devices where,
In
This
case of an emergency in a nurse's
right,
office?
no, because this is bloodborne pathogens. This is
Uh-huh.
not
Okay,
checking for, this is when it's not
Okay.
checking for insulin and those
Uh-huh.
things.
Go close.
That's part of the nursing guidelines I'm going to bring forward to you next month. I'm sorry. I've been
Okay.
working on those. That's not part of this.
okay. Because that kind of falls in
It
line
does-
with
you're- now that you
bloodborne
say it, it
pathogens.
does.
So,
We can add that, let me see. I was working on that in the nursing guidelines.
for example, if a student fails to bring their own device to school and they have a medical emergency, that's what
It
she
is.
is saying, but
Yeah.
it still involves possible blood-borne pathogens and switching out injectors
Yeah.
in the event of an emergency, and what our administrative guideline is going to be if a student fails to bring their own device, and how is the nurse going to handle that with the school device that's available in the office.
It's hard to know if it's in here because it refers to the
Mhm.
school
Well,
health
and that's where we were
manual,
going to
and
put
that's
it in,
where
is
you're
in
going
the
to
school
change
health
it.
manual,
Okay.
because this is more, this.
We got rid of
guidance is more kind of
specifics
post.
and made it more
Correct.
general to the school health manual. So if it's in the school health manual, if you're making the changes in the school health manual, it should be good.
That's where we were putting it. Because this is primarily more post-exposure, how to
Okay.
handle it as opposed to
in the moment.
creating an exposure.
Mhm.
Um,
Okay, so there's not a place to
Not
put
in-
devices in this particular
But it will be as
policy.
part of the health manual and
Okay.
the
That's what I would
nurses.
say.
So
guidelines that I'm
please
doing.
make a note,
Yep.
let's address that administrative guidelines
Yep.
and everything for next month.
Sure.
The school health manual, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Because I know we had talked about that.
We have.
So
That's
let's,
what we're
let's
working on.
make sure we talk about that
So-
next month.
Do we want to wait to send this to the full board for review until we have the school manual, or do you feel more comfortable getting?
It's however you want to handle it.
I think we should do them together.
So
We'll save
we'll
that.
table
Table
this
it.
one till next month.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's a good idea. Thank you. Okay, let's, for discussion, we will move to policy 5-4, extracurricular activities and interscholastic athletics.
So this came from me. This on the first page under extracurricular activity requirements, the second paragraph talks about daily attendance for students that are athletes. And so what is a daily attendance, 85%? What is a daily attendance for a high schooler? Does anyone know? Is it how many, so many blocks a day? Here's the concern. If it's a half a day, they could be skipping third and fourth block every day and still be eligible to play. So do we need something in here that addresses the block schedule now at both, well, it's only high school, right? So like so many unexcused, and this doesn't deal with between unexcused and excused absences. So we've done that with respect to test exemption and stuff like that. If they have a note and then they're excused. But so I assume this is talking about unexcused. So should we have something that's like so many absences in one block or one class would make them ineligible or something like that? I think we need to do something to clarify this.
And I think we need to have a clarification for middle school sports that are not on a block schedule, whether that's half a day or excused or unexcused, and then how are we going to handle the block schedule at the high school athletes?
Well, the middle schools are blocked too, right? Now, all of them? They are.
Oh,
So
okay.
it would be the same class.
I'm sorry, I'm still thinking back to when my
I know,
kids
right?
on the
Same
middle
here.
school, they weren't blocked.
Same here. So I guess, can you ask the principals of the high schools and middle schools next week at the principal meeting what they would think about that? I just don't like the daily attendance thing.
Yeah. I did talk to Nelson about this, and because it came up, the ADs brought it up,
Okay.
and they asked the same question: do we do it period block attendance or do we do it daily attendance? And they can run a report through Power School of both daily attendance, which is my more than half a day kind of thing, and then they can run block attendance. So they can determine either. But I think you're right. And that's for any student. Once I hit half a day, I'm considered there for a day. So you could have a kid who missed.
But it doesn't say half a day here.
Well, because it says you've been in daily attendance. And so daily attendance is defined as half a day.
But you could be skipping out
You could
on
be
two blocks
correct.
every day and not have a problem. But maybe you can fix that by saying so many absences
Correct.
in one block or one class or whatever word you want
Mhm.
are too many.
Yep.
Maybe a recovery with that. I don't know what it is. And I guess I still think we need to address the unexcused and excused.
Correct. I can have,
So did
Dr.
Nelson
Basin.
have any recommendations, or he
He
said
did
they're just
not.
discussing it?
he said that it come to them and he told them the policy says daily attendance. You can run daily attendance reports as easily as you can run period reports. And and so he didn't have a recommendation. He didn't care. We can ask principals if they think it'll improve attendance to say period attendance. I can ask Dr. Basin, Dr. Breedlove, or Dr. Basin and Dr. Harris to talk to their folks
I would like that.
about, sure.
I have a question. How would this
SPCC.
how would this apply to kids that are athletes that are flexing?
That's what, and my other one was SPCC. How do we know that they're in attendance there? So those two things.
Yeah.
So,
Because I know there was some concern. We had conversations with Dr. Breedlove last year. When kids are doing dual enrollment, we have little to no control or knowing if they're even showing up for class.
So we have students who maybe have one class at the high school and 3 at SPCC. So is their daily attendance based upon that one block?
It is.
That's crazy.
It is. Well, and then we have the same issue with if I'm taking an online course, because there's no attendance requirements in an online course. I could do everything the day before it's due because there's no
Well-
login requirements for most courses.
Well, speaking for my child who's doing online through SPCC, his attendance is marked when he goes to his lab.
But see, we have a lot of UC virtual classes too, not just SBCC classes.
Or
Or
NC.
NC virtual.
Yeah, and there's no attendance requirements for those.
So they don't have to go to a lab to do their work?
No.
And I guess the other
Oh, boy.
question I have is, does the North Carolina High School Athletic Association have anything to say on this?
They do not. This is the prior attendance requirement of the High School Athletic Association. They no longer have an attendance requirement and leave it up to LEAs to decide.
Okay.
And
Okay.
when they removed it, we talked about it and felt that we still wanted our
Mhm.
participants to
Some
have
requirement.
attendance
So I think
requirement.
that Dr. Baston and Dr. Harris talking to his principal is a great idea. I also think Nelson Garner has to it has to be part of this. Okay, so that was my discussion point.
So do we want to table this one until we hear back?
It was
from-
only for discussion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But I
Well-
would like to hear back next
Yeah.
policy meeting about what they think about
Yeah,
this.
I definitely want to follow up on this.
So we can follow up on recommendations and or implications, pros and cons of
Okay.
whatever changes that we
Okay.
might want to make.
Thank you.
Because it's not fair to the kids who are on campus all day and they're getting dinged and told that they can't go to, participate, versus a student who is flexing or going to SPCC, and just not getting tracked or called.
So you'll get back to us at the next meeting?
Yep.
Okay, appreciate it. Okay. Oh, we don't have closed.
Okay. So action items to be taken to the full board next Tuesday will be everything listed A through F on policies for second review. We want to get the board's approval on those. And then all of the items for first review, just for them to have first blush. And those are the only things we're going to send to the full board.
Correct.
Our next meeting will be March 25th here at the PDC at 9 a.m. Are there any other comments, questions, or requests for our next meeting? Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
No, we have closed session.
Go into closed session. Thank you.
I move to go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318-11A3 to consult with an attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, which privilege is hereby acknowledged.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.